Item number 3 on today's calendar is Senate Bill 3-2 by Senator Valverde, an act relating to state affairs and government, health care for children and pregnant women, equality in abortion coverage. Senator Valverde, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, it is not every day that we have the chance to correct decades of discrimination while improving access to health care for Rhode Islanders, but we have that chance today. This bill will provide for abortion coverage in the Medicaid program and remove the prohibition on abortion coverage in state employee health plans. 4 years ago, when we passed the Reproductive Privacy Act, we enshrined the right to safe legal abortion in our state law. We protected Rhode Islanders from losing the right that has been stripped from millions of Americans across the country over the last year following the Dobbs decision by the Supreme Court. We took that critically important step, but the work has remained unfinished because for so many, the right has remained elusive. And that's because a right to a health care service is useless if we intentionally prevent people's health insurance from covering it. The ban on abortion coverage in Medicaid and state plans has been an unfair and unjust barrier to the full range of reproductive health care, which includes abortion. Medicaid patients and state workers deserve to have the same access to care as people with private pay health insurance. With passage of this bill, doctors will no longer have to inform their low-income patients that their health insurance won't cover their abortion. Patients will no longer have to cover the full cost, delay essential care, or go without it entirely. I would like to thank you, Mr. President, and you, Leader Pearson, for your commitment to helping us ensure that even as other states across the country pass laws that take their healthcare systems backwards and make things more dangerous for people while they are pregnant, that here in Rhode Island, we will move forward on health equity and continue to improve access to health care. I'd also like to thank our Judiciary Chair, Senator Oyer, and the members of the Judiciary Committee who made sure that we were able to get to where we are tonight. And of course, a big thank you to all of the co-sponsors and the advocates who have kept this conversation front and center for the last couple of years. I am grateful for your partnership, and I am grateful for all of the work that you do inside and outside of this building to help vulnerable Rhode Islanders. So, Mr. President, colleagues, everyone should have equal access to the care that is right for them and their families, including abortion. And I move passage.
Senator Valverde moves passage of the act, seconded by Senator Oyer, Senator Cano, Senator Coleman, Senator Ujaphusa, Senator Lauria, Senator Quesada, Senator Murray, Senator Sosnowski, Senator Gallo, Senator DeMario, Senator Mack, Senator Lawson, Senator Gu, Senator Zuria, Senator Acosta, Senator Miller, Senator Pearson, Senator LaMountain, Senator Bell, and Senator McKinney. Discussion on the act. Senator Mack, we are on the act.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank this chamber for making an important and historic decision to pass and right decades-long wrong of coverage for low-income people and state employees. I would not be in this building if it weren't for organizations like Planned Parenthood or the Rhode Island Coalition for Reproductive Freedom, which I joined when I was 18 years old, fighting for the rights of people in Rhode Island. This is a really big day for someone who was in this chamber in the gallery years ago, sleeping on couches until 6 a.m., advocating for the rights of people like me. And as an abortion funder right here in our state for over 10 years, hearing the devastating stories, the joyful stories, and often hard stories of people who have to make hard decisions between paying for rent, paying for food, or making a decision about their futures, their families, and their lives that will have impact for generations to come. This is a huge, huge moment, and I cannot express gratitude for those in the chamber who made that possible today, and for the advocates who've been here for years fighting for bills, and for the legislators who've been in this chamber for decades fighting for this bill. Thank you on behalf of Rhode Islanders like me. And yes, my first manager, my first boss, and one of my biggest champions, Gretchen Raffa, who's been fighting for this for years. This again is This is a bill that has so many people behind it, so many stories, so many heartache, and so many dollars that won't be spent by people in our communities that can now make sure that our children, our families, our communities are healthier, safer, happy, and that every single person, no matter how much money they make, where their job is, or what their life circumstances is right now in this moment, they have access to a future that is beautiful and filled with love and joy, and the radical notion that we have autonomy over our bodies. No matter what the courts say, Rhode Island has said that Medicaid will cover abortion, state employees will have abortion covered, and abortion will always be a right, thanks to the folks who passed that years ago. So thank you again. There is so much joy on this very momentous and historic day.
All right, thanks, Senator Mack. Further discussion on the act before us. Chairwoman Cano.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I rise to second this important legislation, and I know Senator Mack have a lot of energy, and I'm going to try to follow her energy today, because certainly it's a day to celebrate. But it's a day to celebrate because access to abortion care is life-saving for many, medically important for most, and affirmation of personal autonomy for all. We don't have true reproductive freedom until we have all access care without unequal financial barriers. Passing the Equality in Abortion Coverage Act is an important step to economic justice and addressing also racial inequalities in care. The right to access abortion is already codified in Rhode Island law. To vote against the EACA is to vote to hurt low-income Rhode Islanders and state employees. I will always stand strong for reproductive freedom. And I'm going to just say thank you, Senator Valverde. I think that when I got elected in 2018 through a special election, it was very clear to me that we were in a time where we needed to take action. And one of the very proud moments in 2019 while I was pregnant was to make sure that I casted that vote for the RPA, but also it was important for me because I was pregnant with a little girl. And today I get to not only be able to speak for her as well as a mother of a 3.5-year-old, but to show them and to show her and all the kids in Rhode Island that are little kids and little girls that in Rhode Island we're not only going to have equality for all and access to health care, that it is important for women, but they don't have to worry for all of the things that are happening in the nation, that really Rhode Island is leading the way. So I want to just make sure I say thank you to all the advocates, because we do this together, we'll continue to fight, and we are going to succeed together. So I encourage all of you to support this piece of legislation because it's really about equality and it's really about the moment that we have to ask. So let's do this today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Leader Cruz, you had your light on previously.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of you know where I stand on this bill. It's not a surprise. So I'm going to read a few remarks that I prepared, but also some notes on some things that were already said. For decades, the consensus has maintained that regardless of one's view on the legality or appropriateness of abortion, taxpayers should not be forced or encouraged to pay for abortion. In fact, the Hyde Amendment in 1976 outlawed taxpayer-funded abortion coverage and has received wide and broad support from both Democrats and Republicans for many years, and has been signed into law by Congresses and presidents of both political parties. Rhode Island's version of the Hyde Amendment prohibits state taxpayer dollars from funding elective abortions. While taxpayer funding is already provided in the extenuating circumstances of life of the mother, rape, and incest, this bill goes beyond that. In committee, I heard many of the same things that I'm hearing on the floor, and I'm going to correct some of these statements that are false. The first one is, there's a prohibition on coverage. There's no prohibition on coverage. We currently cover women, and have for many, many years. Medicaid for 40 years, 41 years, and state workers for just about over 30 years. That I keep hearing that we just want the same access to care, equal access. Well, you do, because in 2019, I had a front row seat to the passing of the abortion legislation, and women do have equal access. You know, I heard a lot of sad stories about women who weren't able to procure abortions. Well, again, they can, but if they can't afford it, I suggest perhaps asking Planned Parenthood, instead of spending money on lobbying, they could give that money to women who need abortions and pay for them. The false premise, it's misleading, that the EACA will finally fund abortions for women because Rhode Island, again, already covers it and has for many, many years. This is life-saving legislation. We've already been providing life-saving care to women, again, for many, many, many years. Just gathering some thoughts here. Today's vote, we already know how it's going to go. A few here or a few to the other side. But today's vote is an egregious overstep of the state government. Those who vote no stand firmly on the side of the taxpayer, respect for religious freedom, and conscientious objectors. Despite the increasing hostility towards these values, I will continue to fight for what is right, for what is good and just and fair for the taxpayers. And know that the fight is not over. Under Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, it clearly states, the very last sentence, nothing in this section shall be construed to grant or secure any right relating to abortion or the funding thereof. There will be legal challenges, and I hope that those individuals are successful in that legal challenge, and if they are, I certainly will rejoice on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I saw a quote today, it was actually a thread, and it was from a sociology professor at Rick, and I just felt that it was very appropriate for today, so I'd like to read some of it, but these are not my words, but I think it's very appropriate for this afternoon. To opponents of public insurance coverage for abortion, we all pay taxes for things we find morally reprehensible. Pacifists paying for the military, environmental advocates paying for fossil fuels, prison abolitionists paying for solitary confinement, anyone with a conscience paying for fascist books in our library, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is what it means to live in a pluralistic democracy. Each of us gets to choose to live our lives according to our own moral compassion, but we don't get to declare that taxes are appropriated based on our personal ideals. There are religions that don't believe in blood transfusions. They are free to refuse those transfusions, but they are not free to declare that public health insurance should not pay for transfusions for others to seek appropriate and necessary health care. And while you may believe that abortion is different, that is your personal moral belief. You have the privilege of living in a country where you can live your personal values. We all do. We all pay for things that we value and for things that we don't. And I would just like to end with a quote by Catholics for Choice. Everyone deserves respect when we're making conscience-based decisions about their health care. Everyone should be able to access abortion in a safe, caring environment, free from obstacles, hostility, and judgment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Senator Rogers.
I wasn't going to speak at all. Trust me. I don't know what to say, but what does confuse me is this decision creates an outcome. There's times that I vote on things in this chamber that I'm kind of on the fence on, but I kind of go with my gut and I vote yes or no. And what confuses me about this bill, to me, whether you're for or against it, and this is a personal vision that I see that confuses me, and I guess it's a feeling of mine that well, maybe somebody can answer for me. The celebratory manner on the decision on this vote confuses me in this chamber. To me, whether you're on this side or this side, it shouldn't be celebrated in the manner that I see happening in this chamber. It's a confusion within my eyes. I am not a religious person. I don't legislate religiously. I believe personally I'm a moral person, and that's why I'm somewhat moderate on some issues and stay quiet, but I do vote for my district. But when I do vote for my district, I do it as a whole. So that's all I want to say. I just get confused as a human being on why we should be celebrating this. Whether you believe it in one side or the other, it is a tough decision. And that's all I had to say. And I'm not looking for a response. I'm not looking for a rebuttal. I'm just looking to put out my feelings on what's happening in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whip. Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm so glad that taxes were mentioned, which brings me to my proposed floor amendment, LC 000185/4. I move that amendment, Mr. President.
Okay. Senator De La Cruz offers LC 000185/4. Is there a second? Second by Senator Rogers, Senator Paolino, Senator Deluca. We are on the amendment now. Senator Valverde, we are on the amendment. You are the sponsor of the legislation. Senator Lauria.
Objection, Mr. President. What this amendment is doing is completely striking out the legislation that we have on the floor before us and substituting something in Title 44. So we're debating a health insurance bill, and this is about taxation. This is not germane to the bill before us. So I object to the amendment.
Chairman Oya objects to the amendment. The chair rules that in accordance with Senate Rules, Section 7.17, the floor amendment is not germane. Madam Leader.
I would like to debate the motion. It's a debatable motion.
It is not a debatable motion. Would you like to appeal the motion of the chair? The ruling of the chair.
According to Section 81 of Mason's rules, what motions are debatable? This is a motion that is debatable. We know it's going to pass, so just let me have my moment.
Senator, under our rules,
right?
Under our rules, the debate on that is not germane. Those are under our rules. We have rules. Leader Pearson.
Section 81.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, this is a non-debatable motion. The chair has ruled. If the minority leader would like to appeal the ruling of the chair, she may do that. Otherwise, we need to proceed, Mr. President.
Okay, you have the ability to appeal the ruling of the chair. You appeal the ruling of the chair. Senator Bell, your light is lit. Is there a second to the appeal of the ruling on the chair? Second by Senator Rogers, Senator Paolino.
Recognize me or not?
The ruling of the chair is not debatable. To sustain the ruling of the chair, please vote yes, which is the green button. To oppose the ruling of the chair, please vote no, which is the red button. Senator Bell, your light is lit before we do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I do believe this is an inaccurate procedural motion. These are effectively proxy votes on the amendment. I disagree with the amendment substantively, but I want to clarify that as a procedural basis, I do not think this procedural objection is accurate. It's been used before, and I don't agree with that. So I just want to clarify that. It is true. Leader Pearson is correct. It is not debatable.
Just read.
Okay, let's get back to where we were before. Sustain the ruling of the chair. To sustain the ruling of the chair, vote yes, the green button. To oppose the ruling of the chair, vote red. If all members have cast their vote, the clerk will lock the machine with 30 votes in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, and the motion chair is sustained. We are back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Senator Valverde, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to address a couple of comments that were made earlier in the debate. The minority leader is correct that for decades there have been a very narrow set of exceptions for abortion coverage in the Medicaid program, which is restricted by the Federal Hyde Amendment. But as our colleague from Burrowville is no doubt aware, after hearing hours of testimonies on this bill, there are many reasons why somebody will need to seek abortion care. And I do not think that somebody should have to have been sexually assaulted in order to get the health care they need. I don't think someone should have to be on the verge of death in order to get the health care that they need. Coverage restrictions like the ones that we have in our current law interfere with a patient's ability to get the care that they need, and they interfere with a physician's care of their patients. And these policies are racist, and they are classist, and they need to end today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Further discussion on the act. Hearing Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I say what I say with as much as respect as possible, but what just happened here happens quite often when there are supermajorities in place, by taking the voice of the minority and snuffing it out. It's a weak and feeble thing to do. You know it's going to pass. You should allow the discussion and the debate to go forward. The other thing that really surprises me is that these confidential floor amendments that aren't to be shared with anyone, that this chamber is so swift to stand up and object to and have arguments ready to amendments when they are supposedly confidential. That's an issue perhaps for another day, but I find it very disconcerting that this happens in the chamber. And those that rule here in this chamber do so with an iron fist, with very little regard for those who have minority views. It's wrong, it's unjust. I'm not done.
Point of order.
Point of order, Senator Pearson.
I'd ask the minority leader to retain her comments to the bill, not to the operational rules of the Senate. We do have a debate on that annually, and that time has passed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Please confine your remarks.
Sure, it is confined to the remarks, but
legislation.
thank you. So what I was going to propose for this bill is that since 70% of Rhode Islanders support this legislation, and quote unquote 70%, which I do not believe those numbers, but let's assume that they are. So there are 30% of Rhode Islanders who do not agree with this bill, either because they morally object or object because it goes against their religious beliefs. So that's a third of Rhode Islanders would or do oppose this legislation. Again, I don't agree with the numbers, but let's assume those numbers are accurate. What we should do is on the Rhode Island tax returns, on page 3, when it says Rhode Island checkoff contribution schedule, we should allow taxpayers.
That was in the amendment that you offered. The amendment was deemed non-germane, so I'd like to stick to the bill that is before us, please.
I am sticking to the bill before us. I'm merely suggesting that this is the way it should be done. We should allow taxpayers to opt in. And since 70% already support it, I'm sure we would have more than enough money to cover it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Further discussion on the act? Senator Mack.
Sorry, I forgot one last shout out to an organization that has existed for over 30 years to make sure that every single person, no matter how much money they make, can afford their abortions. And that is the Women's Health and Education Fund, which is an all-volunteer organization that raises 100% of their funds to make sure that no matter where you go in the state of Rhode Island, Rhode Islanders do not have to worry about paying that bill at the end of the day. So thank you to the hundreds and thousands of people who've donated over the last 30 plus years. Your work and your efforts to make sure that though our laws have not allowed abortion to be covered, Rhode Islanders and that gap that existed in coverage did not leave people with bills that would leave their families, their communities devastated, wondering where their next meal would come. So again, a huge, huge shout out to the work of abortion funders who for decades have made sure that no matter what our laws look like, people have had access to this choice. That will no longer be the case. There will still be some folks who will be left in the cracks even after this is passed, but a huge, huge thank you to the decades of work that people have done to make sure that Rhode Islanders, through the Women's Health and Education Fund and all of their donors and all of their board members, have access to authentic choice about their reproductive futures. Again, thank you. This is a joyous day to my colleagues, and I cannot express more gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mack. Senator Deluca.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. Senator Murray mentioned that there was a Catholic group that supported this bill, and I would just want to suggest that those are non-practicing Catholics. I came up with the same issues in committee. As you're aware, the newly elected bishop requested prayer for all the elected officials to vote down this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator DeLuca. Senator Lauria.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a healthcare provider, I deal almost every day with what the ability to not afford care does to people and how it can be devastating. And taking away that barrier is something to celebrate. I celebrate Senator Cano's bill, which removed a barrier to access by removing an economic barrier. And I celebrate this bill as it also removes an economic barrier to care, something that I intend to fight for in my entire term in the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lauria. Senator Quesada.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to get up and say anything. I represent a district very religious. But one thing that I have to say is, I remember when I was a little kid in the Dominican Republic, that when a woman didn't want to have a kid, she decided not to have it, they used to drink some tea to have an abortion. And, at that time, I grew up in a very religious family that we used to go to church every single day. And one of the things that we learned at a very young age, not to have an abortion. And my daughter had a baby when she was 17 years old. And, for me to sit down with my daughter and said to her, what do you want to do? And she said, Mom, I want to have my baby. And my grandson now is 14 years old. And I'm very grateful to have my grandson in my life. But at the same time, it's good to have that choice. She was unfortunate that my insurance was able to pay for if she decided to do. But she decided not to. And I was very glad. Because we teach her at a very young age that you have to be responsible for your actions. And she was responsible for her action. But at the same time, I remember many years ago, not that long ago, a lady, a young woman died in my district because she had an illegal abortion and they didn't do it properly. And she died and she left 4 children behind. And what's the life of those 4 children without their mom? If she was able to have an abortion in the right place, maybe she would be alive today. And those are the things that we need to understand, that we need to have choices in life. And for anything that you do, then that's the reason I support this legislation. And that's the thing. When a woman decides she's not having a baby, they find every way possible to not have it. And what's the best way for them to have in a safe place and the insurance to pay for. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Quesada. Senator Raptakis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote on this bill, but I just want to share some of the comments that were made by my colleagues that this Senate today will vote on two pieces of legislation, this item and the next item, and we are sending a strong message to insurance carriers. We just voted, like Senator Lauria just said, on Senator Cano's bill. We made a decision to send a strong message to insurance carriers that we will cover the issues that was pertained in S-107. But as we move forward, we want to still have the courage and make a decision on any piece of legislation that we want better health care in the state of Rhode Island, whether it's covering hearing aids or it's covering any other item. Because this vote is not only that we're voting on these two pieces of legislation today, but let's make a decision and not deviate that we will care for all Rhode Islanders, regardless what the cost is going to be. And I'm standing up because it's coming from inside of me that we're making a decision today. And I'm not saying which direction you're going to vote, whatever the vote's going to be, but we make a policy that we go after a lot of these insurance carriers that refuse any type of coverage, whatever the merits of the legislation are, whichever aisle you choose to be on the debate. Let's have a standard policy. We're united as we move forward, as my colleague had just said from Barrington, that we make a wise decision to protect all Rhode Islanders, whether it's any type of health care that they are requesting and of need of. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Raptakis. Chairwoman Cano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm standing again because I just feel compelled to answer to Senator Deluca, and I'm sorry I have to do this, but I have stated here before and I stated again. I grew up very much as a Catholic in a Catholic household. And in 2019, I was very much judged and very much attacked by some people in the institution for the Catholic Church. And I do say this today, just like I say in 2019, I was very grateful to be able to have a choice and to be able to say to my parents, which brought me up with a lot of values and in going to the Catholic Church, that I was able to, as a legislator and as a mother, make the decision for every woman, regardless of where they live or what their beliefs are, to have a choice. And then so I take offense to Senator Deluca saying today that because I am on the side of this legislation, which is the right side of history, that I'm not a good Catholic. Because those are my values. And I'm sure that my mom and dad will tell you how they raised me. And I just don't want to make sure that we bring, as a legislator, our beliefs and try to legislate for our beliefs for others. And that's what I stand for, and that's what I will do. And I'll tell you once again, I was very much attacked and judged, but I would respond to the attacks that also my mom would get at church because their daughter was doing this, that to call me on this. So I want to make sure.
We're diverting from the bill. We're talking about things that don't
Let's stay on track.
I appreciate
Madam
that.
Chair,
I just want to say I take offense to what Senator Deluca was saying.
Thank you, Senator Cano. Senator Britto.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be remiss not to tell you how I really feel. However, despite the fact that I am going to vote for this bill, as I've told many and some of you, that I am against abortion in one form or the other. However, I don't feel it is my right to pass that decision down on someone else to make that for me to make a decision for someone else. I'm for abortion when it comes time for the woman's health is being jeopardized, if there's incest, or more importantly, if a woman was raped. But I will tell you, as I stand before you today, that I am against abortion. I don't like the fact that anyone would have an abortion. I'm sure many of you feel this way. However, it's not my decision. And I can go on this evening and tell you stories about my wife and I in a situation that we were in where my oldest son, who, by the way, just so happened to graduate from Syracuse University over the weekend, where she had some health crisis. And it was told to both of us that, you know, it was in the interest that we should have an abortion. However, I didn't think it was right, and we decided to keep the child. And fortunately, we were blessed not to have any issues with my son. But I am against abortion. I always was against abortion, with the exception of the 3 rules that I just gave you. But I tell you now, and I'll tell you afterwards, that it is not my right to pass that judgment on any person or any family. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Britto. Senator Deluca for the second time.
Yes, I just want to encourage Senator Britto to vote his conscience. You know,
Senator, we do not get into personal discussions about individuals and how they vote.
Sure. By casting, I can explain to you separation of church and state, you know, after this, but it doesn't pertain to this. But I encourage you to vote your conscience, you know, because if you do vote for it, vote your conscience.
Thank you, Senator DeLuca. Further discussion on this item? Hearing none, the clerk will unlock the machine. If all members have cast their vote, the clerk will lock the machine. There are 24 votes in the affirmative, 12 in the negative, and the act passes. Next item on our calendar is House Bill 5106, an act relating to state affairs and government, health care for children and pregnant women, equality in abortion coverage. Senator Valverde.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the House version of the bill we have just passed, and I move passage.
Senator Valverde moves the House version of the act that we just passed, seconded by Senator Mario, Senator Gu, Senator Lawson, Senator Mack, Senator Sosnowski, Senator Gallo, Senator Oya, Senator Cano, Senator Coleman, Senator Ujafusa, Senator Quesada, Senator Murray, Senator Lauria, Senator LaMountain, Senator Bell, Senator McKinney, Senator Pearson, I believe Senator Miller, Senator Acosta, Senator Zuria, and that's about it. Discussion on the act. All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, the red button. Clerk will unlock the machine, please. Have all members cast their vote? Clerk will lock the machine. There are 24 votes in the affirmative, 12 in the negative, and the act passes.
The House will be back in session. Just to make sure that we have a quorum, I'm just going to ask everybody who's here to please hit the green button. Clerk, please unlock the machine. And then I'll tell everybody item 13 has now been added to the calendar. It's fresh. So please hit the green button to show we have a quorum. All members, please vote. Green to show your attendance. Clerk, please lock the machine. We have 54 members in attendance. We have a quorum. And I would ask the clerk to go to item number 13. And if you're looking on your iPad, you hit refresh, and it should go down to the last item on today's calendar. Clerk, please read.
Item number 13, Senate 32.
Whip Kazarian, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 32, sponsored by Senator Valverde, is a duplicate bill to my bill that we passed on April 27th. This bill is the Abortion Equality Coverage Act. It would allow for Medicaid dollars to cover abortions to ensure that all women in Rhode Island have access to abortions. I move passage.
Whip Kazarian moves passage. Seconded by Representative Carson, Representative Tansey, Representative Spears, Chairwoman Donovan, Chairwoman Speakman, Representative Henries, Representative Beer, Whip Blazajewski, Representative McGaugh, Representative DeSimone, Chairman Craven, Representative Caldwell, Representative Morales, Chairwoman McEntee, Representative Dawson, Representative Finkelman, Representative Beer, Representative Batista, Chairman Shanley, Representative Agello, Representative Shawcross-Smith, Representative Handy, Representative Cortravan, Representative Knight, Representative Felix, Chairman McNamara, Representative Kislak, Chairman Bennett, Floor Manager Edwards, Representative Giraldo, Representative Vos, Representative Stewart, Representative Boylan, Chairwoman Alzate, Representative Cruz, Representative Potter, Representative Messier, Whip Kazarian, Representative Casimiro. Are there any more seconds? The bill has moved and seconded. Representative Newberry, please. You should be recognized. You should be on.
I'd like to make an observation about process. This is not about the merits of this bill, which we've already debated. I understand that. The Senate just passed this. 2 days ago, or a day and a half ago, the governor put out an announcement before the Senate voted that he was going to have a signing ceremony at 6 o'clock tonight. Now, I understand that this legislative chamber and the Senate, like most legislative bodies in this country, including Congress, rarely have bills come to the floor that don't pass. It's part of the process, no matter who controls it. And I know we already passed it. This is almost perfunctory. But I find it sort of insulting to us as a body, and I mean the Senate and the House, that the governor would be so presumptuous as to schedule a signing ceremony on a piece of legislation.
Yep.
It's not an objection to the rules. It is out of order.
You are correct. Representative Newberry, I know where you're going, but it's not the appropriate time, the appropriate moment in this proceeding to go there. We can have that discussion at a later point. My door is always open to you.
Actually, you're right, but I still had to make the point anyway.
Well, I'm glad to see you ruled in favor of Leader Blazajewski's objection. Representative Lima, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. When this bill was up before, as I had mentioned, I tried to have some amendments drafted, but because I was 10 minutes late, I couldn't. So I have those amendments now, and I would like to move Amendment LC 000-185/2.
Representative Lima moves LC 000-185/2, seconded by Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson and Representative Place, Representative Roberts, Representative Rea as well, seconding on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. What this amendment would do is every place where you see people, person, it puts woman back in the legislation. I have a very important news flash for you. Men cannot get pregnant. Therefore, men do not get abortions. We are talking about women. Now, please don't joke it off that a woman is a person and marginalized, or this radical movement nationwide to erase women. Every woman in this chamber, in this state, in this country, should be offended that women are being erased. How do you go home and look at your daughters, your granddaughter, the picture of your deceased mother on your desk, knowing that you're aiding and abetting a movement to erase women? Everything's got to be gender neutral. No more Mother's Day, Birthing Person Day. No more father-daughter dances. Just erasing women. This is wrong. Has the world turned upside down? There are different genders. There's trans people who have the courage to come out and identify as the opposite sex. Good for them. I'm proud of them. I support them, and nobody should be rude or disrespectful for them. But they're not biological women. Women are women. Women have babies. Women get pregnant. Women have abortions. To marginalize women after all the fights we fought through to get the Constitution changed so that women could vote, to get equal pay for women, to get women to own property, all that work that women have done. You want to erase it because you don't want to offend anybody. Who are you offending? You're offending your mothers, your daughters, your sisters. That's who you're offending. You want to take away the things women have. When I got married, my father had been deceased. So I asked a friend of mine to walk me down the aisle. Did that destroy me or change me that I couldn't follow the traditional way? No, I survived that. But the idea of erasing women after all we fought for, is this reality? We have biological males playing in women's sports. Women are getting hurt. You know, physically, most of the time, a man is stronger than a woman. We had the woman who won the swimming match. She couldn't beat the male, the biological male, because he was inherently stronger. Why can't women have their own sports? Why can't women be women after all we fought for? What is this radical thing to make one gender? Why?
1 minute.
I read today a clothing store's making gender-neutral clothes. What is this absurd movement to erase women? This must stop. And I would hope even the males in this room who have mothers, sisters, daughters, would not want to erase women and take that away from women. It's wrong, it's upside down, it's just plain nuts. And because it was done in another bill, there's no excuse. If we misspell a word in a bill, well, we're going to misspell it in this bill. Don't make light of erasing women. This is too important. People can be included in things, but excluding a woman who's a woman is wrong. I ask for your support on behalf of women, daughters, granddaughters, aunts, and mothers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Earlier, when we were doing the seconds, I neglected to recognize Leader Chippendale. He also seconded Representative Lima's amendment, so let the record indicate that. Rep. Morgan also seconded too. I looked over, I just want to let you know, I looked over there. I didn't see anybody standing up, but I'd be happy to add you. Whip Kazarian, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise in opposition to this amendment. This issue was already raised, debated, and settled during our debate a few weeks ago. I ask you to vote down this amendment. This bill has already passed the House. It just passed the Senate, as is. Again, join me in voting red on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Newberry, please.
This issue was not raised and debated a few weeks ago. There was an amendment drafted by Rep. Lima that was ruled out of time under the rules. But this issue was, well, there was no amendment on, there was no vote in any event.
Thank you. Representative Brien, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I agree with Representative Newberry, Mr. Speaker. The issue isn't settled. It's not settled because it's before us now and we're debating it and we're voting on it. This is not a second bite at the apple. This is the first bite at the apple because the amendment was not offered the first time, as Representative Newberry said. I rise in support of the amendment, quite simply, because if you just sent your mother a Mother's Day card, or you made a call, or you made a visit to your mom last weekend, and you vote against this, I don't know what to tell you. This is one of those things that's not a Democrat or Republican issue. And I know a lot of people in this room agree with Representative Lima. I know they do. And they're going to go red against the amendment anyway. But this is one of those things where this is basic. This is easy. This is a woman's issue. And when did things stop being women's issues? When did that stop being something that we should focus on? Because there are other issues out there that are going to come before us, and we're going to say, well, this is a woman's issue. This is important to women. We need to do this because it's important to women. So we got that part figured out. But when it comes to this, we can't vote with objective truth. I know there's a lot of politics that goes around on this kind of legislation. I know there's a whole ideology and a mindset that's being pushed. But there's also objective truth that cannot be changed. And the objective truth is that this is a women's bill for women, not persons. Yes, I am a person. Yes, my colleague, Rep. Messier, is a person, but she's also a woman. Just like my wife, my mom, my daughters. And there's something sacred and special about that. And I don't know why that just keeps getting watered down. Why can't we admit this is a bill about women? Women who, this bill is about giving women the Equality and Abortion Act. It has nothing to do with men. It has nothing to do with menstruating persons. It has nothing to do with chest feeders. It has nothing to do with pregnant people. It's a women's issue, and that's it. Why can't we at least agree on that bit of objective truth? And when you vote red against the amendment, which I know you will, I know you agree with me, but you can't do it and you won't do it, because if you don't agree with me, you're saying someone other than a woman could have an abortion, and they can't. Prove it. They can't. It's objective reality. It's the truth. It's biology. It's science. Follow the science. That's what we're told. Follow the science. Not here, though. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Henries, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to stand in strong opposition to this amendment. I can promise you in this body that as a woman in the chamber, my existence will not be erased once this bill is signed this evening. For me, it's really about being able to give accessible resources for those who would like to actually get an abortion when they would like to. And that goes for people who are standing in the non-binary and trans community. They are able to give birth to people. So therefore, an abortion would be something that they would have access to and need as a service if they so choose. So those who are sitting there saying that women will be erased, it's the trans community and non-binary people that are being erased in this chamber right now.
Representative Lima, please, for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I put my light on, actually Representative Newberry and my other colleague, Representative Brien, clarified that, what I was going to say.
Okay.
I did not formally bring this issue up before as an amendment because I couldn't get the amendment in. But anyway, think of the excuse you're hearing for not passing this amendment. We already talked about it. Well, Mr. Speaker, can we make that a rule? Anything we already talked about in this chamber, we will never talk about again or bring it up. We will never talk about crime. We'll never talk about tax. We already talked about it. That's the reason not to support it. That's a very poor excuse. And as far as I couldn't hear fully what Representative Henries was saying, but I do know this. I heard follow the science for the past 3 years like all of you. Everything was follow the science. Science. Men do not get pregnant. Therefore, men do not get abortions. Everybody's on this floor and everywhere screaming, this is a woman's health bill, and you take woman out of the bill. Isn't that kind of hypocritical not to support putting women back in the bill, and you're going to stand out in front of this building where we had to waste time to have a ceremony so that you can say we did something for women's health care? You should be ashamed of yourself calling it women's health care if you don't support this amendment. It's persons' health care. You don't want to use the word women. Everything's gender neutral. There's no more Mother's Day, no more father-daughter dances, no more female swimming teams. This is a big moment. Are you going to go along with this political insanity? Political insanity. One gender and a race woman. Have the courage to stand up for what's right. You know, just like Representative Brien said, because I've talked to her, you know what's right. But I'm afraid to vote for that amendment. I won't get a bill passed. Just do the right thing, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And with that, there are no other lights on the amendment. All those in favor of Representative Lima's amendment, vote green. All those opposing, vote red. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All members, please vote. All members, please vote. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 16 votes in the affirmative, 48 in the negative. The amendment fails. We are back on the bill. Representative Lima, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll do this one right away so you can get to your great fanfare on women's health. I have amendment LC 000185/3.
Just a moment, please. Thank you. Representative Lima moves LC 000185/3 as an amendment, seconded by Chairwoman Vella Wilkinson, Representative Roberts, Representative Morgan, Leader Chippendale, Representative Rhea, Representative Nardone, all seconding the bill. Any other seconds? Excuse me, second the amendment. The bill has been moved and seconded. The amendment's been moved and seconded on the amendment. Representative Lima, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. We are forcing people to spend their tax dollars on something that they have a personal or religious objection to, and that is plain wrong. If, like the groups who want this women's health care bill say, something like 72% of the people want this, and I don't think the question was asked correctly. I think they might want 72% of the people to all have access, but if you ask them if they want to take their money out of their pocket and pay for it, I think you would find a very, very different number. But let's go with the supposition that I've heard on this floor. 72% of the people want to spend their tax dollars on abortions for Medicaid people and for state workers who could be making six figures. Then let's do it voluntarily. When you file your income tax and you get your refund, you can check off.
I think you might want to use Representative Phillips. Your passion speech, you pulled the plug right out of the microphone. You're a pretty strong woman.
Thank you for calling me a woman. Can we put it back in the bill now? Wow, I've been here 30 years and had some passions. That's the first time I blew a microphone. But I do feel very passionate about this. And I want to remind you, I voted for Representative Alzate's bill last year. I'm pro-choice. I have always been pro-choice. I'm pro-choice to the first 3 months. But I don't think we should be forcing taxpayers, especially during these difficult times and high inflation, forcing them to use more tax dollars to pay for something they're personally and religiously opposed to. We should not be doing that to the taxpayers. It's wrong. However, if you want to get people who are Medicaid or people who work for the state not to have to pay for an abortion, then let's do it voluntarily. You got 72% of the people out there who want this, you say. Let them check off their income tax refund box, and they can say, I want to give $5, I want to give $25 of my refund for this cause because I believe in it. And that's fine. But without this amendment, you are forcing people to pay for something they're fundamentally in objection to. And that is wrong. Do it on a voluntary matter, fine. I mean, these are high inflation times. People are struggling. How many times have I heard that on the floor? And, oops, we got a cause here, and we want you to take more money out of your pocket, even though you're against this cause, even though it's against your religion, we don't care. Pay up. So I ask your support for this amendment. You can get what you want, and you'll get it in a much fairer way to all the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Whip Kazarian, please.
Thank you again, Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I once again rise in opposition to this amendment. This issue didn't come in as an amendment when we debated this bill a few weeks ago on the House, but it was discussed, it was raised, it was debated, and it was refuted. There is, I'll say furthermore, there is no other medical procedure that does this, that goes through this process. This shouldn't either. I ask you to join me and vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Whip. And with that, there are no other lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in favor of Representative Lima's amendment, vote red. All those, all in favor, vote green. All opposed, vote red. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 14 in the affirmative, 48 in the negative. The amendment is defeated. We are back on the bill, and there are no lights. Clerk, please unlock the machine. On the bill, all those in favor, please vote green. Any in the negative, please vote red. All members, please vote. Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 44 votes in the affirmative, 18 in the negative. The bill passes, and that would conclude today's calendar. Is there any objection to transmitting all matters on the clerk's desk? What's the objection? Thank you very much. Your request is denied. Okay. Okay.
Well, happy to be here, to sign this legislation today. Thank you to the to Whip Kazarian and along with Senator Valverde for sponsorship, and then all the team behind me that have supported this effort. Was very pleased to be able to follow through on what we had talked about earlier by rolling this in the budget, so it's nice and easy. This issue is not a budget issue any longer. It was an issue about equity and the fact that making sure that everyone had equal health for on their insurance, and that coverage covers the the issues that are important to all of us, and the women's issues in particular. So I'm happy to sign here, and let's see, here we are, right up the top here. And
we're gonna.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Sure. Yeah, sure.
Well, I don't want to hold up a bill signing, so I'll be
No, that's okay.
I just want to say I'm so thrilled to be at this moment. This is so exciting. There are so many people to thank, most importantly to my speaker and leader who have always been there for us, who have always supported this bill. I truly. also want to thank all the organizations that came out and supported this bill. Their testimony, their advocacy was phenomenal. I want to thank my co-sponsors, many of whom are standing in this room. You guys, it was a true teamwork. But most importantly, I want to recognize and thank Representative Edie Agello, who started this fight and has gotten us to this point. Today is about trusting women, ensuring that all women have equal access to the health care that they need. And I will end with a final thank you and turn it over to Senator Valverde, my co-sponsor in the Senate. I could not have done it without you. Thank you so much.
I have to thank Whip Kazarian for her partnership this year on this bill. It has been a long time coming for Rhode Island, and it was helped along by everybody in this room and so many people outside of this room, including the Senate President, Leader Pearson, and all of my co-sponsors, especially Senator Sosnowski, who for a long time was in this fight by herself.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that this room is filled today. It is absolutely about health equity. And let's get to the side.
So I can sign now?
Yes.
I didn't want to jump the gun.
No.
Okay, here we go. This is great. You sign that. And Rep, thank you.
Oh, thank
Congratulations to everybody that worked on it.